So, at BlizzCon, one of the very first announcements they made in the opening ceremony with the World of Warcraft section was Legacy Servers, as they call it, World of Warcraft Classic. Now, details are still going to be emerging, we hope, over the BlizzCon weekend. Maybe it's just an announcement with more information to be determined. But this is fairly big news. How big news is this? Because some people, of course, won't be interested at all in these. Some people will be very interested. But what we can see is 5 hours ago now, round about that, is when Blizzard made this announcement. They made a couple of announcements. They made the announcement of the classic WoW, and they made the announcement for the next expansion. And they put a short excerpt of the opening ceremony announcing both of these things on the World of Warcraft YouTube channel. This is what the views look like, coming out at exactly the same time. So certainly at the moment as things go, might change over the next day or two, the Warcraft vanilla servers are what is the biggest hype and what the most interest. Now, what is this going to mean exactly, and why are Blizzard doing it? After all, it was only a few years ago that they were saying, when it came to a question about whether they're ever going to do this, you think you want it, but you don't. Now, we had all the hoo-ha last year over Nostalrius, a private server group that was actually setting up vanilla servers, as many of these do. They're, of course, doing it illicitly. I mean, this is Blizzard's copyright, which is why, although I support the idea of legacy servers, and I said as much when we were talking about this last year, I can't sort of say that I'm okay with other people just doing it when Blizzard don't do it. I very much understand people's motivation. After all, this is a form of the game. I mean, private servers, you could argue, I mean, private servers existed in vanilla, and you could say at the time some people were playing those just so they didn't have to pay. But it's sort of moved on from that. There will still be people in that situation, but there are some people playing them because they want to play that, and they have no option to do that with Blizzard. Well, it sounds like they're going to. Now, this doesn't sound imminent, by the way. The way the announcement was made doesn't make it sound like it's right around the corner. However, the fact that they've announced it at this BlizzCon, when it was totally out of the blue, would suggest they're going to bring it out in the next year. You would expect, say, before the next BlizzCon. Otherwise, they could have just announced it at the next BlizzCon. So you're sort of guessing, and it is no more than a guess at the moment, that this is something that's going to be coming out in 2018. So how is it likely to go? And again, this is largely speculation, but some people, when we're talking about in the BlizzCon stream, we're sort of talking about it being an extra server option within the World of Warcraft game. That wouldn't work. That cannot work. There's several things that would go wrong there. First of all, obviously, add-ons we're using for the modern WoW are not going to work in that one. So that doesn't. That you have to keep disabling add-ons or load different add-ons in every time you go to a different server. That's madness. So that can't happen. It's also totally different. You know, the online, you can't have access to the online store, mounts, tabs, things like that. So it has to be a separate game. So on your Battle.net, where you've got World of Warcraft and you've got, like, you know, Diablo 3 and StarCraft 2 and all the other Blizzard games, it has to be a separate option. WoW Classic, if that's what they want to call it. Now, in terms of why are Blizzard doing it, there are only two reasons why they would do it. Bear in mind, they were so against it. Remember, there was the think you want it, but you don't. Then there was the publicity stunt with Nostalrius. And when everyone, you know, when Blizzard invited the guys from Nostalrius to go to Blizzard HQ to discuss it, everyone was going, oh, yeah, this is going to be a thing. Blizzard are going to get behind this. And I was there saying that, you know, there was no noises, encouraging noises coming out of Blizzard at all. It sounded for me like a typical politician's trick. You're just doing something, waiting for a bit of a passage of time, and then just quietly dropping it. Now, it doesn't sound like they have completely dropped it, but that was sort of the view that was coming. Nostalrius, of course, has been and went. Even Elysium has been and gone since then. But it looks like they have done it now. What's the reason? They can only be either because they want to make some more money, they see an opportunity to make money out of this, or, and I think this is much, much more likely, it's a way of tackling private servers. Private servers and gold sellers traditionally have been the thorn in Blizzard's side when it comes to World of Warcraft. They've largely beaten gold sellers, not completely. People, as you know, still try and hack your account and so on. But, you know, gold sellers in general are certainly not as pervasive as they used to be. And how did Blizzard ultimately solve that? By basically letting us buy gold, the WoW token system. This sounds like a way of beating private servers without having to go to a lot of lengthy and expensive court action, because they can just say to players, why play on this private server, which actually might go under, because as soon as we threat it with legal action, they may have to pull out. And these private servers, by the way, some of them have issues of their own. I gather, and I can't speak from personal experience on this one, but Elysium had a bit of an issue with paid content within it. Now, of course, if it was done by Blizzard, it would be done properly, it would be all legitimate, and it would be more stable. That would suggest to me that what they probably would do is make it free. They've already announced they're making part of StarCraft 2 free to play. It would make total sense for this to be free to play too, as an add-on. At the very most, maybe they could charge a nominal subscription fee, like a few dollars a month, but you get it free if you've got a World of Warcraft account and, you know, specifically subscription. But for me, I would just make it completely free to play, even if you didn't have any other Blizzard games that you were paying for or anything like that, as a way of getting people to move from the private servers back to the fold of Blizzard. To Advantage, again, it removes the need for the private servers, so they lose all legitimacy at this point. They don't have any legal legitimacy, bear in mind, but even moral legitimacy just disappears. And second, by bringing them back in, maybe some of them then will purchase, you know, some Blizzard games. So there's that side of it too. So for me, yeah, it would make sense that it would be free, but they haven't announced that as yet. And, well, that's all we really know about it at the moment. We don't know how they're going to pitch it. We know they did say, the only thing they did say is obviously they're not going to set it off in its actual launch state. So we assume they're going to set it off on a fairly advanced patch. Whether they do so with all the raids and dungeons out and the zones as they were nearer towards the end, certainly well into 2006 version of WoW, maybe they would do that. That might make a certain amount of sense. Or maybe they'll do it on a cycling type content where, you know, they start off with an advanced patch, but only, you know, so many dungeons and raids, and bring more out over a period of time, every, say, 5 or 6 months, something like that. But then what do you do right at the end of it? It's difficult to say, isn't it? How many servers would there be as well? I mean, presumably there would be a few. The fact that it got so many views, that video, suggests to me that there'd be plenty of take-up on it. So there's definitely scope for them putting quite a lot of servers into it. It could be a real boon for them. It was something that people have been asking for a very long time. A lot of people may have imagined that it was a relatively small number of people, or that it was people who, once they actually do try it out, will get bored of it pretty quickly. I think it's sort of shown that there are a large number of players that actually do want that content. Now, for me, and I was talking about this in the stream as well, it's a bit like, for a lot of players that are playing WoW now that might be curious about it, I'm sure an awful lot of them won't really enjoy it, because a lot of the quality of life features that we get now, not in the game in vanilla, and when they're not going to be in that form. I think the only quality of life feature that we'll really have in it will be the keychain, which of course is needed with all those keys to get into dungeons. But the mount tab won't be there. Mounts will work as they did. Warlocks will have to farm their soul shards, and hunters will have to leave lots of space for arrows or bullets, as well as food for their pet. You know, all that side of stuff. And the way I described it to the people in my stream who maybe hadn't experienced vanilla was, imagine, you know, look around now, look at all the mod cons you've got, and imagine you're in real life Doctor Who scenario when the angels come and blast you back in time 60 years. You're 60 years in the past, and that's it. You've got to live there now. How are you going to cope without your internet, without your tablets, without your mobile phone, you know, without Uber, without all of the things that we're used to today? How are you going to cope with that? Think about that, because that's sort of what it would be like going from Legion to vanilla WoW. I mean, sure, I mean, people were asking me, would I roll a character? Of course I would roll a character, purely for nostalgia. I wouldn't expect to spend a lot of time on it. I've done vanilla. I did the whole of vanilla, you know, and it was great times, absolutely fantastic times. But when you think about it, you think about all the good times, but it was loads better then because, you know, those quality of life features that I would miss if I went back. We didn't have those at all in any game, so you weren't used to them. We got those over time. So, you know, I think when I played it, I would like seeing the zones as they were. I didn't like the fact that they changed the zones in Qatar. I didn't like the fact that they changed some of my favourite dungeons. So, yeah, I would do it now and then and play it quite casually, just for nostalgia's sake. But I would soon notice the pain in the arse of it. You know, levelling up as a paladin, pain in the arse. You know, getting dungeon groups together, pain in the arse. Going to the dungeons, pain in the arse. Getting raids together, pain in the arse. Doing the raids, doing the trash, pain in the arse. Everything, pain in the arse. So there we go. That's the announcement. I'm hoping there will be some more news coming over the next few days, but I'll probably much more like to tweet stuff like that rather than do another video because it's there. People have asked for it. It's here. So hopefully all those guys that are currently playing on private servers or would like to, but maybe in my situation where they don't feel they should because really, you know, it is Blizzard's copyrighted material and it's sort of a bit naughty to do that, will be able to do it when it comes out eventually. Who knows when that will be. But thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and share for further content. And until next time, I'll see you later.